On previous unit, I remember unit at the very beginning, we learned how to graph from vertex form. Remember, if I had something like, let's say, x plus 19 all squared minus 3, we learned that the vertex in that case would be negative 19, negative 3. Remember how we used to look at the value inside the parentheses? We changed the sign for the x value, so it will be from positive 19 to negative 19. And then this number at the very end, it would tell us our y value on the vertex. And then also the sign or the numbered with the sign included in front of the parentheses. So sometimes here on the left, that would tell us if the parabola was open up or open down. In this case, because it's positive, this thing was open up. We talked about that in the previous unit. Another thing that I remembered is last week we talked about completing the squared. As in, for example, number 11, we had x squared plus 38x, and we found out that 361 was the number that completed the squared, and we wrote that as x plus 19 all squared. I know we talked about that last week. Now we're going to connect both things that we learned in the past with today's lecture. Here it says, rewrite each expression from standard form to vertex form. So standard, as we can see, I have a trinomial, right? 3 terms. And my highest exponent comes first, and then it keeps on going down exponent-wise. And I'm going to write from this form, we call this standard form, to vertex form. So I expect something inside of parentheses squared, and outside of the parentheses, a plus or minus something else. So this is what we're going to do. What I'm going to do, this number that is by itself, this minus 60, I'm going to move it a little more to the right. So let me rewrite this as n squared plus 4n. Let me leave some space in there, and let me write my minus 60. So all I did was I opened some space in here. Now, when I focus on my first 2 terms, n squared plus 4n, I'm going to complete the square. I remember that I said to complete the square, what we're going to do is get the half of 4. So there's the value of this here. My second number is 4. I'm going to get the half of that. So in this case, my value is positive 2. So remember, I always get the half of that term. And then I square it. So what's 2 squared? So what's 2 multiplied by itself? 2 times 2 will be 4. So if I wanted to complete the squared, I will add a 4. But let me add a 4 and let me subtract the 4. That's interesting. Add a 4, subtract the 4. So technically, I didn't do anything. But the reason why I did that is because I know my trinomial n squared plus 4n plus 4. I know that factors to n plus 2 all squared. Remember, we talked about this last week. So I made sure that I was able to complete my square. So n squared plus 4n plus 4 factors to n plus 2 all squared. And then let me combine these 2 numbers, negative 4 and a negative 60. Well, negative 4 and a negative 60, that is negative 64. Well, guess what? That is my vertex form. You see n plus 2 all squared minus 64. If I wanted to read this, I would just say, oh, I have information here. My vertex is negative 2, negative 64. So if I wanted to graph that, I can easily find my vertex. The sign at the very beginning is positive, so this thing is open up, and I have an idea how this graph looks like. That's it. That's all I wanted you guys to do, get the vertex form. So on your homework, the parentheses all squared, that's going to be given to you. I'm just going to have a little space inside the parentheses and a little space outside of the parentheses. What I want you to complete here, if this was a question on my homework, I will do my n plus 2 inside the parentheses and outside minus 64. Sometimes we're going to have a plus instead. So minus or plus, whatever we get. Most of the time it's going to be a minus. I'll be honest with you. Most of the time it's going to be a minus, but sometimes it could be a plus. All right, let's take a look at number 14. Let's take a look. Remember, I gotta move my minus 24. I want to move it to the right. So let me open some space here. So I have x squared minus 10x. Let me leave some space. Minus 24. My leading coefficient is 1, so that's good. So I look at my second number, negative 10. And I ask myself, what's the half of negative 10? In this case, negative 5. I'm going to write it down because I'm about to use it in a minute. So the half of negative 10 is negative 5. What is negative 5 squared? So basically, negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. So let me add 25 and subtract 25. When I look at these three terms, x squared minus 10x plus 25, that is x minus 5 all squared. I completed the square. When I combine these last two numbers, negative 25 and a negative 24, that is negative 49. So if on my homework, my first box, I will have x minus 5. In my second box, I will write minus 49. All together in each box, all together. Don't add any extra spaces. Let's take a look at number 15. Let me write this as r squared plus 12r. Let me leave some space, minus 80. My leading coefficient is a 1, so that's good. I look at plus 12. And I ask myself, what's the half of 12? In this case, positive 6. So notice I'm even going to write it with the sign included. So positive 6, that's a half of 12. What's 6 squared? So 6 times 6. Well, it's 36. So let me add a 36 and let me subtract 36 because r squared plus 12r plus 36, that is r plus 6 all square. I completed the square. When I combine these last two numbers, negative 36 and a negative 80, that gives me negative 116. So all my boxes, the first box is r plus 6, all together, no spaces. And my second box is minus 116. No spaces in between. All right, let's take a look at one last example. Let me rewrite this as x squared plus 16x. Let me leave some space in between, minus 89. My leading coefficient is 1, so that's good. Here, my second number, 16. So I ask myself, what's the half of 16? What's the half of positive 16? Well, in this case, positive 8. That's the half of that. I even wrote it because I'm about to use it. What's 8 squared? So what's 8 times 8? Well, 64. So let me go plus 64 minus 64. I know the first three terms, x squared plus 16x plus 64, that is basically x plus 8 whole squared. So I completed the square. When I combine these last two numbers, negative 64 and a negative 89, that gives me negative 153. So my first box is x plus 8, and the second box is minus 153. Now, one thing I want you guys to notice. Remember when I did the plus 8 and square was 64. Notice I did the plus 64 and then the minus 64. So look at the numbers that I add. Looking at number 15, I did plus 36 and then minus 36. Look at number 13. I did the plus 4 and then the minus 4. So always write the plus number first. Right, 14 was no different. I did the plus 25 and then minus 25. So whenever you add your plus or minus, do add the plus first.